Are you here? Huh? Here? Here, on the Paul Leslie Hour. You see, we divide all people into two groups, the here and the not here. If you're here, welcome to the episode. We've got an on-camera interview with a bona fide legend in the world of song. Singer, songwriter, performing and recording artist Dickey Lee sits down to talk with your host, Paul Leslie. This interview went down in Dickey's Tennessee home. Now, Dickey Lee is an inductee of the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's written some great songs, and everybody knows She Thinks I Still Care. Oh, yes. The #1 hit for George Jones and recorded by hundreds of other artists. As a recording artist himself, Dickey Lee has nearly 30 songs in the charts. Hey, speaking of charts, you're invited to be #1 with a bullet when you subscribe to the Paul Leslie YouTube channel. Hey, we think we're on our way to 3,000 YouTube subscribers. Wow, if you were at the top of that list, who would you be? Couldn't do it without you, that's for sure. Oh yes, thank you to the supremely talented Amanda Colleen Williams. So who's ready to hear from Dickey Lee now? Roll it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here in the home of Mr. Dickey Lee. We're in Franklin, Tennessee. Thank you so much for inviting me over to have this talk. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Good to have you, Paul.
It's an honor. So, Tennessee is your home state?
All the way. Born in Memphis.
In Memphis?
Yep.
Can you kind of paint a picture with words? What was your early days like?
I was a farm boy. Grew up on a small farm.
Yeah.
Chopped cotton, picked cotton, plowed behind a mule. Finally graduated to a tractor. And I could hardly wait to get out of there. And now I look back and it doesn't seem so bad.
Would you say there was a lot of music around the house growing up?
Yeah, my mom and dad were big record fans, the old big band era, and
yeah,
that was basically it. They played a lot of records. I had 2 siblings, I had a brother and a sister. Neither one of them had any real interest in music. My mother played piano, and I guess I really got into music when I was probably about 13, 14 years old.
All right. Has there been anything that has surprised you about your life?
Well, probably what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
Back then I never thought that I would really make it in this industry. And I'm certainly not a superstar, but I've loved it and I've made a good living out of it. And I think it was, when I was a kid, I had a dream, and I think there's something magic about it. I could see myself. Wasn't sure it would happen, I don't guess, because it seemed impossible at the time. But I could see myself, like singing, having hit songs, like daydreams, And I just stayed at it, and it took a while,
Yeah.
Had a lot of turn downs. Of course, I was so young anyway. Some of my turn downs, I think, be hard to make it when you're trying to make it 13, 14, and 15 years old. But I had a mission. Just a dream. I just really wanted to see if I could fulfill it.
Would you say that your ability to write songs, is that something that you think is innate? Or is it something you had to, like a craft, you had to work at?
Well, I definitely think it's a craft. Yeah. And, I wrote, but, like as far as writing, I just started trying to write songs naturally when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and, wrote some pretty bad ones. Nobody liked them but my mother.
Yeah.
It was a natural thing. I bought my first guitar when I keep saying 13, but that's when it all pretty much started, and got my first guitar in a pawn shop. And man, it was hard because the strings are about that far off the fretboard. You know, I think it cost me $8, and I'm left-handed, and you know, you really didn't see any left-handed guitars, you know, during that time. So I took it home, changed the strings around, and show you how dumb I was when I got home. I guess that's the first time I turned around. I had a big split in the back of it. But anyway, you know, I played it for a while and finally thought something a little better. But, you know, it was almost like start off as a hobby, you know. And I guess, you know, what really inspired me, this is funny, there was a guy who went to my high school, remember his name was David Ransom. I have no idea what happened to him, but he was a typical high school hero. You know, he's a big athlete. And he would play a guitar on Fridays sometime. We'd have these high school assemblies and he'd play guitars. And I thought, man, that's what I want to do. I want to be popular like he is. So, you know, that got me into athletics and got me into music. So I blame him for it.
What about the first time you went into a recording studio? Can you tell us about that experience?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. The first time, I'm not even sure I can remember the first time I went there, but I know when I had made my first record, was a radio studio. And there was I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, there was a disc jockey out of Memphis, Dewey Phillips, had a show called Red Hot and Blue, 6 nights a week from 9 to 12. And he was hot with the teenagers. And his radio, the station was downtown. It was in a hotel downtown. And I went down there one night and waited for him to get off the air and asked him if he would listen to a couple of songs, you know, and he did. You know, so I never thought that he might not, but until later, you know. But he listened to a couple of songs I'd written, and he said, those are pretty good. He said, have you got a band? And I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, I'll tell you what, he said, if you'll put a band together and rehearse these songs, I'll listen to them again. You know, so I did, you know, much to his surprise, I don't know, but I called him later on. I was in high school and just getting ready to start college. And I got a group of guys together, a little rhythm band, and we went down to the radio studios and I played them for him, and he said, that's pretty good. So we actually recorded them right then, you know, and, you know, just a basic rhythm section, just bass, drums, and guitar. That was it. Rhythm guitar, bass, lead guitar, and drums. And he got him on this little fly-by-night label and got to number 2 in Memphis. You know, it was just a little territorial hit, but it came out at the same time Elvis's All Shook Up came out, and my record followed his up the charts. I was 1 slot behind him all the way to number 2. I never got to number 1 because of Elvis. But songs called, nobody had ever heard of them really, called Dream Boy and Stay True Baby. And they listed both sides, you know, on the record charts.
Right.
But anyway, that was my first record, my first recording experience in WHBQ radio.
Could you put a number on it? How many songs you've written throughout your life?
Oh, I don't. You know, I've been asked that question so many times. I ought to find out. But probably a few hundred. I wouldn't say in the thousands. I'd say a few hundred. But I've, you know, it's like I don't write every day.
Right.
I feel like I've written a bunch of songs, and sometimes I'll go through my old catalogs and I'll come up on a song I don't even remember.
Interesting. Is there a song of yours that you would say you're the most proud of?
Wow. I don't know. I have a sentimental favorite that She Thinks I Still Care.
Yeah.
Because it was my first hit record as a songwriter, and it's been my most successful. They tell me it's been recorded by probably 1,000 artists today. And everybody I know almost has done it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's got to be my sentimental favorite. But I have another song. As far as recording, it's my favorite recording, and that's In a Different Light by Doug Stone.
Right.
I just love that record. You know, I thought it was, Doug Johnson produced it, and I thought it was just a great production. And then I have another kind of a sentimental favorite that I put it on a few B-sides. Nobody ever knew it, but I wrote it about my oldest daughter, she's 55 now, and I wrote it about her when she was about 6 years old. It's called Dana, D-A-N-N-A. And that was kind of a father-daughter thing. And I guess those three are favorites of mine.
Well, on the note of She Thinks I Still Care, I have seen that number. 1,000 different singers have done it, you know, and there's even been instrumental versions of it and everything. It's just, I mean, let's name a few. There's, of course, the famous George Jones version.
First one.
The first one, yeah. And then Jerry Lee Lewis did it, didn't he?
Jerry Lee did it.
Yeah. Elvis Presley.
Elvis.
Right there, I mean, already, but go on, name a few more.
Well, you know, James Taylor, Merle Haggard, Webb Pierce. I don't know, I could go on.
So many.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about that song? It's like one of these songs that just, I guess so many people have identified with it, but why?
I think mainly is a simplicity.
Yeah.
It's just a simple love song, and I think that, you know, a lot of people go through that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of a pride thing, you know, when you get dumped on.
Right.
But I remember Chet Atkins told me one time he thought it was one of the greatest country songs ever written, which, I mean, that's coming from him. That's really something. And it's like, you know, it didn't take a great mind to write that song, because I remember Jack Clement. I'm sure you're aware of Jack Clement, but he's the guy that really, I met him at Sun Records, and he really was my mentor. And I remember when I first really got going, and I said, Jack, do you think I could ever really write a big hit song? And he said, sure, you don't have to be that smart to write a big hit song. So I said, great, I qualify, you know. But anyway, that was just, you know, that was the first one, and it's been trying to get a follow-up to that one ever since, you know. George's record came out in 63, 70, 80, 90, what about 60, 70 years ago. It's kind of scary.
But still such a...
And still getting recorded, you know. It's just, it's amazing.
A standard.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. How important is emotion to writing a song?
To me, it's everything. And that goes into to how you construct a song. And to me, like, lyrics, you know, you got to have great lyrics, I think. But I think what makes a lyric sound even greater is the melody. I think you got to have a really neat melody. You can say I love you a lot of different ways, but a lot of the melodies have to do with how strong it comes across. And that was melodies have always been a really big thing to me, because I think that's what really creates the emotion for the lyric.
Interesting. I also wanted to ask about this song. I have always thought that this was a really good song, Let's Fall to Pieces Together, which was recorded by the great George Strait.
Yeah. Well, you know, funny you bring that up, because just talking about the music, I wrote that with Tommy Rocco and Johnny Russell. And I remember the three of us, we wrote for the same company. We were writing for Welt Music at the time, and we were sitting in my office one day trying to come up with something. And Russell said, let's write something really country. And I don't know, and I just said, pardon me, you left your tears on the jukebox. And we just went from there. But after we finished that song, I wasn't that excited about it, but Ray Baker produced it on George Strait at the time, and like Ray Baker made a chord change in that song, and for musicians they'll know what I'm talking about. But in the chorus, we changed one chord, and it was like, let's see, pardon me. Well, let's see, I never can think of my melodies. I have to think of them all the way through. But it was in the bridge, and he made this one chord change. Didn't change the melody, just changed the chord. And I thought, wow, when he did that, I said, that's the first time to me it sounded like a hit song. But I credit Ray Baker for that. I mean, it was just he used instead of instead of using a 4 chord, he used a flatted 7th. And was right on the end of the chorus. So that's as good as I can explain it.
It's been so many different recording artists who have done your stuff, and you were inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame. Would you say that there's been a biggest honor in your life?
I would say the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame is probably the biggest honor. And I always said I never felt like I deserved it, but I'd take it. Because it just so many of your peers in there that have written such great songs. And I think, wow, man, I don't know how I got into this company, into this elite group, but it's pretty neat.
Well, speaking of peers, the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame has everyone in there from people like Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, goodness, Loretta Lynn, could go on.
Yeah.
But who are the songwriters that you admire the most?
Well, one of the songwriters I admire the most is a close friend of mine, Bob McDill.
Yeah.
And boy, he's written some great songs, and we've co-written some good songs together. And one reason I'm in the Hall of Fame is because of some of the co-writers I wrote with. I think I've had some great co-writers: Waylon Holyfield, Bob McDill, Johnny Russell, Kerry Chater. Just it goes on and on. But it's just, and I have fun writing with others, and I have fun writing by myself. Yeah, it's just I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to have had the writers that I've been associated with. And like I say, Bob McDill, we're close friends, and sometimes I have to step back to realize how good he really is.
Yeah.
He wrote some. I would say he's one of the top writers that ever hit Nashville.
How is he doing? I got to interview him a few years back.
He's doing great.
Yeah.
He's in good health, and he's writing short stories.
Yeah.
He's a hunter, and he writes a lot of short stories for sports magazines. But really some really good short stories. He's just a good writer.
Has there been another songwriter that you've worked with that you would say has taught you the most about songwriting?
I'd say probably Jack Clement. And Bob McDill. And I learned a lot from Jack, because I met Jack, I told you, I had this first record, Dream Boy and Stay True Baby, on this little record, and then from there I went to Sun Records. That's where I met Jack Clement. He was the engineer at Sun, and we got to be really good friends. And our friendship, it turned out to last, till he died a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And he was a real mentor of mine, and I just absorbed a lot of his songwriting knowledge.
A huge name in the history of music in Nashville.
Yeah. And boy, he's written some great songs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Has there been a version of one of your songs that someone has done that has surprised you in terms of how they interpreted it?
Oh, wow. Well, like I say, I mentioned before, the In a Different Light was one of them. But I've heard so many. There have been so many artists that have recorded a few of my songs that just trying to pinpoint one. I have to think a while. But I remember Oh gosh, there have been so many great records on She Thinks I Still Care.
Yeah.
Anne Murray had the first female version of it.
Right.
Thought that was a great record. John Fogerty with Creedence Clearwater. You know, boy, he had a record I loved, and so many. Ronnie Millsap had a really cool version of it, and Elvis's version, he recorded it twice, and he kind of did a little rocked up version of it. One cut, and the other one was a straight ballad. But that song, his version really grew on me. I thought, wow, he sang the heck out of that song. So, but yeah, after our interview's over, I'll think of 10 or 20 more.
Were you around Elvis Presley much?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah. I was talking about when I had that first record, when he had All Shook Up, and I had mine. The disc jockey I was telling you about, Dewey Phillips, and another disc jockey, Wink Martindale, who was in Memphis at the time, they put on a show out at this nice spot in Memphis called Rainbow Terrace Room, and my band and me, we filled the place up. And when I was leaving, a guy came up to me and said, "Elvis wants to meet you." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he was parked outside on the curb, and he took me over and thought, wow, so he said, "I really like your record," and I thought I wish he'd come in, maybe sang a couple of songs. But anyway, he introduced himself, and we got to know each other a little bit. He invited me out to his house, and I took advantage of that. I went out there a few times. I always joked I'd take a date out there. They always wanted to go out there with me, but they never wanted to leave with me. But he was really a good guy. And he was really, really nice to me.
Well, they can't exactly see from this shot of the camera, but there's all these guitars over here, and I'm curious, what gets you inspired to start writing, to pick up the paper and pen or a guitar and begin crafting a song?
Well, I'll tell you, probably. First thing that gets me inspired is just, when I first started, I was just thinking about different girls and different experiences and all. But it's funny talking about these guitars. Let me preface this a little bit. About 3 or 4 years ago, I had some really nice guitars, but I just kind of got bored with them, and so I asked a friend of mine who had a music store here, Joe Chambers. He started the Musicians Hall of Fame here in Nashville.
Right.
And I said, Joe, I want a guitar that, I gave him an idea of what I was looking for. And he said, well, let me think about it. So, because I figured he'd find something in his store that I might like. And it's a little harder looking for a left-handed guitar because there are not quite as many of them around. But anyway, he called me back and said, "I'm going to have this guy call you." This guy called me. His name was David Vincent. He lives here today. He was a Takamine representative. So I'd never played a Takamine guitar. I'd seen him. I'd never seen a left-handed one. But he said, "Joe told me what you were kind of looking for." He said, "I think maybe I could help you." So anyway, I met him at his office probably a few weeks later, and he had a couple of left-handed Takamines down there. And I played them, and man, I loved them. I just really loved them. And one thing they're so it makes doing concerts so easy because they've got all the electronics built in, And I play electric acoustic. When I first started rock and roll, I play a Telecaster most of the time. But when I got these Takamines, it just got me interested in writing again.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wanted to do something with them. And I'll give you an example. And what I've been doing lately, most of my shows, I still do. I do some oldies rock and roll shows. I'll do them with bands. But, I've done a bunch of writers in the round here in Nashville over the years. And I remember this was just before COVID. I had 3 shows in Michigan. I played a lot of shows with this promoter up in Michigan. And he said, and I'd just gotten these Takamines, and we were talking about it. And I said, let me throw an idea at you. He said, "What's that?" I said, and he'd always brought in bands, and big sound and all that stuff when I do these shows up there. I said, how about if I come up there? He just booked 3 shows for me. They were about 3 months off. He just booked them, and I said, how about I come up there, just me and my guitar, and I'll sit on a stool. I'll sing my hits, and then I'll sing hits that I wrote for other people, and just talk about the songs to people. And I said, you won't have to pay for a band. You won't have to pay for their rooms, their food, their motel. You won't have to pay to bring in a big sound system. You just pay me what you pay me. And I think that kind of turned him on a little bit, because he thought, I can save some money doing this. So
right.
He said, well, let's give it a try. And I thought, all right. So after I hung up, I thought, what in the heck have I done? Because I'd never done anything like that before, except, play for small audiences in these little intimate clubs around Nashville, So I'll tell you what I did. I started I guess the show was first show, and there were like 3 shows, like 3 nights in a row. And I started practicing. I guess the shows were about 2 months off. I did my whole show every day, maybe 5 days a week for, almost a couple of months. I'd never worked that hard. And I'll tell you something, what I found out, Paul, I had this theory, I proved it. Practice makes you better. So I thought, wow, it really does, So, and the first show I was really nervous because, it probably had maybe 700 or 800 people. It was just me, and usually I'd play for maybe 100, and I was real nervous, but it came off great, and people love to hear stories about your songs, and so I did that, and ever since then, that's the way I prefer to perform. I don't always do that. I use bands a lot, but it's low key, it's intimate. You kind of set your own pace, and you have this back and forth thing with the audience, and I just got where I really loved it, and you can really talk about your songs, and your audiences, they love to hear these stories about songs, how they were written, some of the reasons they were written, and so I love to do that. So I've been doing it a lot since then. That was about 5 years ago, I guess. So that's the way I prefer to play. And I don't turn down any good rock and roll shows.
Right.
And usually those I'll do them with some of the oldies shows. There'll be 2 or 3 other performers on there with, and I always enjoy being with some of those guys that I've known forever. But I really it showed me a whole new form of performing when I started doing this, and it's really, I think it's brought the best out in me. And I'm certainly not a session musician,
right?
But at least I know how to play my own stuff, and the more you play, and the more you can play them, it makes it more fun to play because you enjoy doing it rather than thinking, oh boy, I hope I don't mess up this song,
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of where I am today.
So is there any interest on your part in recording something soon, or?
I just did a simple little recording that we've released digitally. I'll play it for you. It's only been out about, came out just right around Christmas. In fact, it's kind of a Christmas type song.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anything big will happen to it. We just did it almost as a fun thing.
Right.
But it's called The Christmas Ornament.
Oh,
that does sound like a Christmas song, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a little more in depth than just Christmas. It's kind of has a military theme to it too. So, but anyway, I'll play it for you later on. And,
all right.
Hopefully some of the folks will get to hear it. I think they're playing it some. So
absolutely. Would you say that it's more important in the music business to have a little bit of humility, or is it more important to have confidence?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, I've gotten to the point where I know when I first started this business, even when I had my first big hit record, I was scared to death, you know. And now, you know, I've overcome that. I have confidence, but I feel humility just because I'm so blessed to be able to do this, you know. And I feel it really feels neat to see people enjoy what you're doing, you know. To think I can make people happy, that really feels great. So I certainly I've never had an arrogant attitude toward it. I mean, I always just I feel like I'm blessed for being able to do this, and then to get paid for what you love to do. It's kind of a little extra bonus too, you know. Yeah. So I just love it. I just love it, and I think the humility part, it's a big thing with me because I'm just so grateful. But yeah, I love it.
Well, on that note, to who or to what do you feel you owe your talent?
Well, I'm a Christian. I think I get it all from God, I think. And then I've had some human influences too, you know. So a lot of people I've heard. You know, nobody ever remembers some of these groups, but a group that I loved and kind of inspired me. They didn't, you know, I sang some of their songs way back, not for audiences even, but do you remember a group, and they're probably way before your time, the Hilltoppers?
I don't know that one.
Most people don't. They were out of, Google them sometime. They were out of Western Kentucky. They went to Western Kentucky University. These four guys, oh gosh, now I can't, one of them became a big orchestra leader, and I'm trying to think of his name, and I can't right now, but one of them was a quarterback of the Western Kentucky football team, and they were just really cool, and boy, they had a bunch of hits in the 50s. But Google them sometime, the Hilltoppers.
I will.
And I grew up, you know, I started off as a rock and roll singer, pop, rock and roll, and I was influenced by Elvis. But I loved, growing up, I loved country music. Even before I heard of Elvis or anybody, I loved Webb Pierce, Farron Young, Hank Thompson. That was my true love. And then I guess people like Elvis turned my head a little bit, and I started off pop, rock and roll, and did that for a few years. And actually, I graduated back to country. I ended up my career, I guess, I recorded country for RCA for about 10 years. So, but man, I love music. I just love it all. And I remember, you know, I heard some kind of, well, it's like my grandmother. She was a big Metropolitan opera buff. She couldn't stand country music until I started having hits with it. You know, it changed her mind. But I tell you, there are a lot of people that look down on, you know, twangy country music, and they're missing the boat. They don't realize they are, but I've gone into places, sit down and just listen to like primitive country bands. Maybe there might be 3 or 4 pieces of some little old club, and I'm thinking, God, I love this. Yeah, it's just, there's something magic about it, and it's easy to miss the magic. Yeah, you know, like you don't have to be highly literate or highly educated to do something with that stuff. Not that I'm putting it down, because there's some very intelligent people that, you know, have been big in country music, but boy, some of that primitive country music, I just love it. Yeah, I can't tell you why. It's just the way it hits me. There's a group today. In fact, the Malpas brothers. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I am.
Well, one of the brothers, Chris, and Conrad Fisher, a kid I've been working with, we just wrote a song together, and they just recorded it. It's not out yet, but I got turned on to those guys. I mean, all they do is just conventional country music, you know, and I love them, you know. Yeah. And they're, you know, they ain't gonna do any rock and roll, you know. They're true to their roots. Boy, they're from North Carolina. In fact, they're doing a show here in Columbia, Tennessee, a week from this Saturday. I'm going to go down and see them. I've never seen them live, but really good guys. And boy, they probably do 250 dates a year. I mean, they're everywhere. But boy, they just, they stayed true to their country roots. And if people hadn't heard them, check them out, the Malpas Brothers.
Definitely. Well, we taped before this interview the Bobby Wood interview.
Yep.
And this came up. We were talking about Hank Williams. And since you're talking about roots and some of those songs, I'm hoping I could get just a little bit of your thoughts on Hank Williams. This is the centenary year, 100 years since his birth.
Wow. Okay, let me tell you this. I'm a lot different. I love Hank Williams. I love his songs. When I first started out, I didn't like him at all.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why. It's like I loved my three favorites. I guess when I really got started, or four even, were like Webb Pierce, Hank Thompson, Farron Young, and Carl Smith. And man, I didn't like Hank Williams. Same way. Two other singers, like really rock and roll and kind of folky pop, Bob Dylan and Rod Stewart. I couldn't stand those two guys when I first heard them. Like with Hank Williams. Now I love all three of them. I guess I had to grow into them. Even a little bit with Frank Sinatra. I didn't like Frank Sinatra
really?
First, but I love Frank Sinatra now. I love to hear his records. So maybe it was a little bit of my maturing. I don't know, but these guys. To all four of them that I mentioned, I think they're great. And I'm thinking, I must have missed something.
Yeah.
When I first started, because I completely missed them, But it's just like missing a hit song sometime, I guess.
Well, on that note, what makes a good song a good song?
Oh, wow. If I could tell you, if I knew the answer to it, I could write a lot more hit songs. But I think the first thing is emotion. I think you've got to make a song has to make people. They have to identify with it. It's got to make them laugh. It's got to make them cry. It's got to affect them emotionally, I think. And I don't know. I don't know how to do that except when I try to write, I really try to write. If I'm not writing about some real life situation that I was in, or I'll make up things just like I'm, say, maybe writing a script for a movie or something. I just try to. I've always been a romanticist, and that makes it easy. And most of my hits, they've all been ballads that I wrote, But I think the key word is emotion. You've got to affect people emotionally. And how do you do that? I don't know, like I was just telling you about the George Strait song. That song didn't affect me emotionally until Ray Baker changed one chord on that record. And I thought, wow. But it's just a certain sound can make words hit you differently. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. But I've written a lot of songs that maybe starting off, and I have to have a title to get started for me, or I write myself into a corner. But a lot of them I write a little while, I just couldn't get anywhere with them, and every once in a while, boy, something just comes out of there. I think it's a God thing, and it's like you think, wow. Where did that come from, And when that happens, that's the magic starts. But to me, a song, it's like doing a puzzle, trying to make all these little pieces fit. I always compared it to playing a game of Scrabble. You ever play Scrabble?
Certainly, yeah.
And and I think first of all, it's got to be simple. There's a simplicity to it. And love is simple. Well, you can say love is very, it can get crazy, but basically, real love, it's just simple. And I thought, in Scrabble, it's those little 2 and 3 letter words where you really rack up.
Yeah.
If you get too intellectual or try to get too too much, the songs, they just get almost too clinical. You know, it's gotta just be simple,
right,
and easy. Not where you have to think, now what does that mean? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I never had that problem anyway.
Well, what is the best thing about being Dickey Lee?
Oh man, that's I'm not sure there is any best thing about being Dickey Lee. I'm just enjoying my life. Like I say, I'm a Christian, and that means I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and that has made my life just very simple and content. You know, I don't, and I wasn't always this way. You know, like I remember when I first got into this business, like, boy, I'd live and die with a bullet. You know, man, one week I was feeling awesome, and the next week I was feeling so far down. You know, you'd take you a year to pull me up out of a well or something. But and today, you know, it's like, I don't worry about that. You know, I let things take care of themselves, and I'm just content, and I'm happy, no matter what's going on. So,
I love that.
And that's Christian growth. I mean, I've been a Christian since I was a teenager, but I wasn't living a Christian life for a long time. And my faith just grew. And when I put all my faith in Him, you know, I don't have any problems. And I'm sure, you know, like, you know, there are a lot of unbelievers out there, you know, and they're thinking, you're an idiot, you know, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not.
Now, does reading the Bible, does that ever inspire your songwriting?
You know, not. I can't name a certain instance. I'm sure it probably has, just from my attitude. You know, because I read the Bible every day.
Yeah.
And it really, I couldn't name you. I couldn't connect a song with my Bible reading, but I'm sure inadvertently. Yeah. You know, it's crept into some of the songs and some of my messages. And, you know, I wrote songs, you know, it's just like, I've written some cheating songs that have been hits, you know, and like, that's not my idea of the right lifestyle. And some of the songs I wrote, I wouldn't write today. But at the same time, I went through this. This is something that I really dealt with. And I talked to people and I said, well, is it wrong? Am I singing? I'm a believer, and I'm going out, and some of these songs I'm singing, you know, they're cheating songs. And I finally came to the conclusion that, hey, there are slices of life. And a lot of times I'll tell people, I wouldn't write this today, but this goes on today. Yeah. It's part of life. So, and I still enjoy singing them, you know. Yeah. So anyway, that's where I am right now with that.
We could put all these different labels on you. Dickey Lee, singer, songwriter, recording artist, guitarist, performer. How would you define Dickey Lee? Who is Dickey Lee at heart?
I think I'm just a friendly guy. You know, I've got a lot of friends. I like everybody, and I just live life one day at a time. No matter what's going on. And like today, I'm 86 years old, and I thought I'd be dead by now, but I've been blessed with good health, and I worked out all my life, played ball in school, and keep coming up with that 13-year deal, but I've probably been working out since I was 13 years old, and I'm sure, you know, that's helped me as far as my health is concerned. But I just enjoy living from day to day, and I don't do nearly as many shows as I used to do. I do as many as I want to do, and today I don't have an agent. I don't have a booking agent, but there are quite a few promoters that I've gotten to know over the years, and I don't call anybody. Every once in a while they'll call me and say, "Hey, would you like to do a show so and so?" And I'd say, "Yeah," because I still love to do it. And like I say, since I started doing this thing, just me and my guitar, I really get a kick out of that. I'm really enjoying it and relating to my audiences. But I just kind of sit around and sometimes they call me, sometimes they don't. But I play about as much as I want to.
Nice. Well, I always like to end the show. I just give the guest the microphone, so to speak. It's a very open-ended question. You could go anywhere. For whoever's tuned in, what would you say in closing?
I would just say, live life to its fullest. Just enjoy life. Think God put us here for a reason. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not. But when if you have the faith of Christ, the hard times aren't as bad. There's a verse in the Bible that I've just been really concentrating on the last few weeks. And it's James, first chapter, 2, 3, and 4 verses. And it's like, of course, I never can remember these verses when I try to, but it's a philosophy. And it's like, if you consider all hardships a joy, when you encounter tough things, just consider it joyful, and it'll create endurance. Like you'll be able to endure it, and it'll build your faith, and it'll build you, because, man, life is not easy, and it has its ups and downs. But like I say, when I first started, I was going like this, and so now I'm just pretty much even keel. Try to love people, and I just try to kind of keep it even rather than going up and down. And boy, it's really makes a difference in your life. So I guess I'd say, enjoy life, and if you don't know Jesus Christ, check him out.
Wonderful. And I want to say one more thing. Thank you to Amanda Colleen Williams for putting us in touch, because I had wanted to interview you for years and years. And then she said, what do you think about interviewing Dickey Lee?
I think we've tried to get together once or twice, and it never quite worked out. And she's a really sweet lady.
Isn't she, though?
Yeah. And her dad was a great guy.
Kim Williams. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda, for sure.
All right. Well, Dickey Lee, thank you, sir. It's been a great pleasure.
Same here, Paul. I've enjoyed it.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
The Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people like you, listeners, viewers. Please go to thepaulleslie.com/support, and you'll know what to do when you're there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who contributes. Performance of The Entertainer intro song by John Primorano. And of course, this is your announcer speaking. See you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.